Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Battle for Azeroth, and in today's video we'll be talking about the expansion once more. This one is going to talk about more in terms of in-depth of how the developers are going to be approaching classes. And this is important for me because I feel like this is something we talked about for a very long while. In Legion, what Blizzard did, which I think is a good thing, but you know, to each is their own, I think what they did right is the spec fantasy. Now, not every specialization did justice. I'm playing Outlaw. You have some people that say, wow, the party aesthetic is really nice. Other people saying, I don't get why I'm playing Lottery Rogue. But a lot of people are, for the most part, happy with just how the approach for each specialization has been. We did see a pretty big prune in most of the specializations, so honestly, we didn't really see a lot of changes for, I guess, more in-depth of each spec and class. But what we did see is a few flavor changes for specializations in terms of how Blizzard is approaching them visually, in terms of how Blizzard is going to be approaching them in terms of utility, and they are trying to define each specialization. But with that came some challenges, and the challenges that we saw from Rogue perspective were they took away Gouge from every spec. Hell, they took away Blind from Assassination for the longest time, and you just had all these cool utilities that you brought to the table with CC, and now they're gone. So, I mean, where do we go from there? And I understand the one to make each spec specific, but I mean, that created a lot of challenges. Now you would basically take everybody based on how much damage you did, because they also decrease the amount of how good utility is and what it can do for you. And as an Outlaw Rogue, who technically should be performing well in a Mythic Plus with my cleave capabilities and being able to gouge some certain casts of spells, it doesn't really make a difference. In most cases, I can just opt in for Assassination, and because I can perform more damage, then we're good to go. But what Blizzard is doing is, in the expansion, from a interview that they had while on the demo with Annie Fushia, and I'll have the link for the actual VOD if you guys want to watch the whole thing. She asked basically some of the questions regarding class utility and raid buffs, and this is important because this kind of tells us where Blizzard is at in terms of our class design, kind of where they're at currently. Again, this is all super early, so if you have any ideas, I'd suggest go to the forums right now and start making suggestions, because if Blizzard is bringing out Classic WoW, I'm pretty sure they're listening. So get your ideas out there, and if enough people support your ideas, then hey, it'll get enough upvotes and be at the top of the forum posts. Somebody will read it at one point or another. And if we're gonna make class changes now for our favorite classes, we can start doing it right now with some of the ideas that we have. Maybe some of them will be great and Blizzard will implement, some won't. Anyway, let's talk about what the interview entails. So we talked about on the channel before about class buffs, so they covered that, about the idea that they want class to be able to bring something new. It doesn't really matter about the spec, it's more about what a class brings to the table, and allowing a group to be able to accept a class that might not be performing all that well in order to increase your survivability. Another thing to talk about is class utility, and utility, they basically described it as different experience based on who you bring to the group. And let's say you're doing a Mythic Plus, and you bring a mage and a warlock. Your experience supposed to be different than if you bring a mage and a rogue, or even a mage and a hunter. You're supposed to have different strategies and different approaches to a situation. I'm not really sure exactly how they can do it to drastically change it, but they said things like hibernate and soothe will be returned into the game. So maybe, I guess, for example, there will be some mobs that have a berserk mechanic where they enrage, or maybe some of the affixes causing mobs to enrage might allow druids to bring soothe, maybe at a very high cost of mana, to be able to soothe some of the targets so the tank isn't taking as much damage of something of that sort. And of course, hibernate will allow you to CC some of the mobs, maybe, I guess, bypassing some of the bigger mobs. So I guess they're bringing in those old school ways of changing the gameplay. I was kind of expecting, like, maybe the rogue will always be able to stealth your party, so you can stealth around the field and pick your fights everywhere you go kind of deal, but that'd be a little bit overpowered. But that might give the possibility for rogues to bring something like poisons back. I would say very unlikely, because they made a pretty good separation between Subtlety, Assass, and Outlaw, and gave basically slows and all the other utilities poisons would do without implementation. But something like a poison like aesthetic, maybe like when you auto attack you slow targets automatically for all 3 specs, maybe stuff like smoke bomb for all rogues. That would be very, very interesting, as it will allow you to be able to hide away from some of the AoEs, maybe bring back the damage reduction effect. So this is a good thing, because now we'll have a little bit more homogenization of classes. I mean, I like being able to be completely different as an Outlaw rogue from a Subtlety rogue, but there are some things a Subtlety rogue can do better than I can, and people would rather take Subtlety. Even though I can do gouges, and I can have my roll the bones buffs, and I can have a few more vanishes than the Subtlety, it doesn't matter. A lot of people would rather take Subtlety just because they can do upfront damage and triple cheap shot on a bunch of NPCs. I mean, it kind of allows me to be more, to allow me to play how I want to play, but the main concept that I'm bringing to the team is still there no matter what spec I play. So I can enjoy playing what I love playing while still bringing the basic that a rogue would bring to the team, which doesn't make me feel too special, but makes me feel special in terms of I can play what I want to play and nobody will take me out, and that's great. And some of the other things I talked about is artifact traits being applied to the classes, because I feel like those are just so integral in some of the different passes that we have. Just, they're so core. Like, even the artifact weapon for Outlaw, and they even make it one of the traits, the one where on a general rush your next roll the bones gives you 2 or more buffs guarantee. That's becoming a talent, and some of these passes might just become part of passes for the classes. So that's cool that they are trying to take ideas from what we already had and trying to apply it without completely making it the core thing, because while I want the artifact weapons to basically be gone and not have the same artifact weapon effects, some classes really do need those, and they are really, really useful and kind of help build the class. Some of the other things they talked about is specific classes they want to work on. One of them is Shadow Priest and Void Management. I have a Shadow Priest and I know how it feels. The Void mechanic I thought was going to be the dumbest thing ever, because I was just so hard set on the Shadow Orbs and what it brought to you. The CC, the damage, everything, but the Void mechanic does come out to be a pretty good mechanic. But in Mythic Plus, let's be honest, it kind of sucks. I mean, the build up for the Void, just so much of your damage that you basically do damage when you're in Void and you do 0 damage when you're out of it. So Mythic Plus, when you're just trying to go for that ramp up, I mean, it just feels awful sometimes. So what they want to do is kind of try to offset it a little bit, maybe take out some of the big hurdle of damage for Void in terms of how much it buffs you, or maybe have a faster ramp up time. So basically it's all about, you know, the intro, kind of like how a rogue gets the setup, gets the opener. You put up your Growth, you get a cheap shot, you get a rupture. Basically a Shadow Priest will be able to, as an opener, as hello, I go into my Void form, and then you basically play through Void form with most of your damage. I don't know how they're gonna do it, but they also want to change, make changes to Surrender to Madness. I didn't play Shadow Priest long enough to play with Surrender to Madness, but it was a really cool mechanic and I loved it, just the idea of it. What was cool is very successful players that got the gear and practiced with the Surrender to Madness could technically maximize their damage at a cost of their life. So for a last boss in a Mythic Plus, they could really go all out on damage and literally save their team like a few minutes in order to get that +3 chest. That was so cool, but Blizzard did gut it because it just was a bit too strong for the meta, and they kind of wanted to walk away from it because some players that just couldn't handle Surrender to Madness were basically losing their damage. So it was just separating the community, I guess, too much. I love anything that's skill based, so I love when they brought it in, and I was a little bit sad when they took it out, but it's understandable why they would take it out at the same time. Another thing is Disc Priest and Paladins. I mean, those are 2 healers that have a damage component, so you're kind of just trying to balance out Paladin melee healing and Disc Priest damage healing. And I think it's really, really cool that they are working on that, because if you keep the Disc Priest as part of damage/healing aspect, that's what makes the spec unique. And I would love to see Paladin, Holy Paladins, just going into the melee with everybody else, and even have like maybe a stance where for every single melee hit you do, you heal others, and then you can turn off that stance so you can go back to casting heals whenever you need to. I think that'd be really cool. Maybe like an aura, bring back Paladin auras of sorts. It's just really cool the fact that they are working on something like this. They also said nothing for Warlocks, so if you are a Warlock and you have any complaints, I would say, I would tell you right now, go to the forums, start a post, start listening to things that you would want to happen to Warlocks right now, because they said they would have nothing for Warlocks. And they also said they generally were happy with healers. They didn't touch on any of the specs in that particular interview, but I'm pretty sure if we wait around for a little bit longer, we'll have a bit more information on how Blizzard is treating every single class specifically. Nothing on rogues yet, but as soon as we have stuff to report, then that's what we'll have. So far, I'm really excited, not only from a rogue perspective, but from a player perspective that plays a variety of other classes as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. This is everything they have so far from an interview about some of the classes that they're thinking of, and this is just one interview. So if you have any ideas, I would say go to the forums right now, start posting your ideas, try to be as coherent, as cohesive as possible, and just try to get your messages across. Because if we do it early, then we'll be able to get most of these, if not some of these changes, maybe implemented to the specialization. Again, Blizzard is listening. We are going to have vanilla world to work up. If WoW Classic is going to be a thing, then it's safe to say that they are probably going to do a lot more class changes in the future for the specialization. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see all of you in the next one.